18 U.S. Code Section 2382, Misprision of treason. Whoever, owing allegiance to the United States, and having knowledge of the commission of any treason against them, conceals and does not, as soon as may be, disclose and make known the same to the President, or to some judge of the United States, or to the governor or to some judge or justice of a particular state, is guilty of misprision of treason and shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned not more than 7 years, or both. June 25, 1948.
President Thomas Jefferson. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their money, the banks and the corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless. Declaration of Thomas Jefferson.
1913. With the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, a private foreign banking cartel was made the fiscal agent of the United States. Source document, Representative McFadden, Congressional Record, June 1932. From the website of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, quote, "The entry of the United States into World War I added to the responsibilities of the young Federal Reserve Bank. It helped finance U.S. military expenditures by becoming the fiscal agent of the federal government." 1920. Congress handed the U.S. Treasury over to the same private banking cartel via the Independent Treasury Act. Source document, Independent Treasury Act, 1920. 1921. The Council on Foreign Relations was founded to direct the media. Paul Warburg was its first director. Warburg also drafted the Federal Reserve Act and became the Fed's first governor. Paul Warburg was an agent for the Rothschilds banking dynasty. 1925. The United States Corporation Company was chartered in perpetuity in Florida by its fiscal agent. Source document, Articles of Incorporation, United States Corporation Company. This company was created without the approval of Congress, nor the knowledge and authority of the American people. Note, in 1925, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York had offices on Cedar Street and on Broadway, both cited in the Articles of Incorporation. Source document, Articles of Incorporation, United States Corporation Company. The other shareholders were not identified. 1920s. The U.S. Treasury was raided by the private Federal Reserve Bank, who then caused the Great Depression and bankrupted the United States Corporation Company. Source document, Representative Lewis McFadden. Congressional Record, June 1932. 1933. A state of emergency was claimed and Congress gave the President unconstitutional emergency powers. Source document, Congressional Record, March 1933. On behalf of the private Federal Reserve, President Roosevelt confiscated the people's gold and forced all to use the Federal Reserve notes from then on. Source document, Congressional Record, March 1933. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation. Therefore, their notes are privately owned currency. The people and the property of the United States was hypothecated and placed unlawfully in a public trust. Source document, Representative Trafficant, Congressional Record, March 1993. Hypothecate means to pledge as security without delivery of possession. 1933. The Internal Revenue Service was chartered in Delaware as a private corporation. It is not a division of the U.S. Treasury. Source document, Internal Revenue Service Corporate Charter, 1933. The United States is a private corporation with unnamed stockholders. A private corporation is its fiscal agent. A private corporation owns and circulates the currency we are forced to use. A private corporation expects us to pay them taxes.
Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says, "Nothing but gold and silver coins shall be tender for payment of debt." So what's that in your wallet right now?
The U.S. CEO, the President, has maintained unconstitutional emergency powers for the past 80 years. Source document Senate Report 93549 and Continuation of the National Emergency 2012-2013. Quote, all United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. Source document, Representative Trafficant, Congressional Record, March 1993. Today, as has been demonstrated, the United States is just a corporate franchised network represented by their all-caps names such as State of Ohio. Corporate statutes have replaced laws. A corporate statute is a rule of a corporation given the force of law by the consent of the parties. This consent generally requires a signed contract.
Consequently, the corporation and government and people who want to control you, they create a second you, and that second you that they control, that they created, is all capital letters. Check it out. Anytime you get a bill, you get a lawsuit, you get a fine, a ticket, somebody sends you a bill from the Department of Water and Power, check it out on your driver's license, on your Social Security card, on your insurance cards, anything, period. Anything having to do with business, your name will always be in all capital letters, because only all capital letters can be dealt with by banks and government. Anytime you have a name upper or lowercase, that applies to you. I got no control over you. You sign a contract in which your name is in all capital letters, now I can take you to court. Now I can take you. As a matter of fact, the judge sits on the bench. He rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Look it up in a Latin dictionary. So the judge rules from the bench. Right, because he's ruling for the bank. Why? Because somebody's going to pay. It's just a game here. The Queen of England wants a cut of the American blood. She wants a piece. So it's going, somebody's going to pay, and the money's going to go where? Into a bank. That's right. The judge rules for the bank.
Congress passed an act titled, An Act to Provide a Government for the District of Columbia.
This is also known as the Act of 1871.
Congress, under no constitutional authority to do so, created a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, which is a 10-mile square parcel of land located between Maryland and Virginia.
In essence, this act formed the corporation known as the United States. Corporation Duns numbers of the U.S. corporate government, United States Government 052714196. The original Constitution drafted by our founding fathers was written in this manner, a Constitution for the United States of America.
The altered version reads, The Constitution of the United States of America. It is the corporate constitution. It is not the same document you might think it is. The corporate constitution operates in an economic capacity, and has been used to fool the people into thinking it is the same parchment that governs the republic. No, absolutely is not.
Capitalization. An insignificant change? Not when one is referring to the context of a legal document. No, is not. Such minor alterations have had major impacts on each subsequent generation born in this country.
The Congress, with the passage of the Act of 1871, created an entirely new document, a constitution for the government of the District of Columbia. The kind of government they created was a corporation.
The new altered constitution serves as the constitution of the corporation and not that of America. Think about that for a moment.
So, Congress committed treason against the people. We were considered sovereign under the Declaration of Independence and the organic Constitution. When we consider the word sovereign, we must think about what the word means.
Sovereign is defined as number 1, chief or highest, supreme. Number 2, supreme in power, superior in position to all others. Number 3, independent of and unlimited by any other, possessing or entitled to independent authority and jurisdiction.
In other words, our government was created by and for sovereigns, the free citizens who are deemed the highest authority. Only the people are sovereign.
The new altered Constitution serves as the Constitution of the corporation and not that of America. Think about that for a moment. The new altered Constitution serves as the Constitution of the corporation and not that of America. Think about that for a moment.
We get there to the National Archives, got a hold of the head of the National Archives, and we get to work. Well, day one, it was me, 5 guys, and 3 guys from the National Archives looking for the Constitution for the state of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, even Nebraska and Kansas, and most of the states west of the Mississippi. By the 4th day, we had 28 people from the National Archives desperately hunting for these constitutions and unable to find them. And now, by the 9th day, we I found I start for, let's see, from the 7th day on, I was going through miscellaneous document boxes that nobody had opened since 1901, 1890s, 1870s, and I started. I get to every letter had probably, you're talking 8,000 to 12,000 boxes per letter of miscellaneous document boxes. I get to G, I think it was 37 or something like that, and all of a sudden, and every one of them before that, they just handed it to me. Here's a box. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. And then I get to G37, and they go, sorry, but we can't show you the contents until we verify the contents of this box. And I'm like, oh, hell no. So I called, I had the National Archives head on speed dial. So I called them up. Within 5 minutes, I had a big old giant box in front of me with 2 people on each shoulder. And they gave me a pair of white gloves, and I start going through the box. Miscellaneous document number 55 was the Washington State Constitution of 1878. Miscellaneous document number 40 was Montana's Constitution. Number 39 was Oregon's. 34, I believe, was Colorado's. But here was all these miscellaneous documents in this box, and not only was the original constitutions for, like, say, Washington's was 1878, Colorado's was 1876, but these constitutions, they didn't have very many pages. And they were about 3 feet long with a big red, white, and gold ribbon, red, white, and blue ribbon with a big gold seal. And they're all handwritten, by the way. And the significance of these constitutions and why they were buried in the miscellaneous document box. By the way, this box had only been opened once in 1898 and once in 1901. So I'm the first guy in 2001 to open it in 100 years. And in the Montana Constitution I found, there were 2 pages missing. And it wasn't handwritten. And they're getting ready to shut down the National Archives because they had a door. They have a button they'll hit that'll lock all the doors and lock down the whole archives. And they'll search everybody, make sure you don't steal stuff. And I pointed out, no, they're here. I think I found them. He goes, where? I said, they're glued together. So 2 of the pages of the Montana Constitution were glued face to face together. And those constitutions, including Colorado's, Montana's, South Dakota, North Dakota's, Washington's, Idaho's, Oregon's, all these constitutions had 3 provisions in them that literally changed the face of the states and possibly the country. One is that no city, county, or state official can use their powers or authorities to enrich any corporation whatsoever. It doesn't say except municipal, county, or state corporations. It says any corporation whatsoever. The second one says corporate executives and their major controlling stockholders are to be held criminally liable for the actions of the corporation. Now, wouldn't this be a different world? And then the third one says no corporation can have a standing body of armed men. Now, if you look up with Dun & Bradstreet, which is where corporations generally register, you will find the governor of whatever state you happen to be in, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the state, for that matter, are all registered for-profit corporations with Dun & Bradstreet with what they call DUNS numbers, and which makes them for-profit corporations. So somewhere between 1898 and 1901, they buried all these original constitutions in the miscellaneous document box that nobody opens for 100 years, and they created fake constitutions, and they created states known as state of, because the original constitutions said all actions in the name of the state must be in the name of the state of, all upper and lower case letters. And if you look at the way your state writes its name now, it's state of. Maybe it's the, but it's all capital letters. And in law, all caps means either it's a partnership, corporation, or trust. So if your attorney general's in all caps, if your governor's in all caps, if your secretary of state's in all caps, that makes them what they are, registered for-profit corporations with DUNS numbers. And the problem with that is the only constitution that exists in the National Archives for these states since 1901 has been, or maybe 1898, has been the constitutions that I found in those miscellaneous document box, in that miscellaneous document box, listed under miscellaneous document, like Washington 55, 39 for Montana, 40s for Oregon. But if people knew that, the corporations that are running our states are nothing but criminal organizations that are criminally profiteering, committing racketeering, organized crime, and money laundering. And most of the elected officials, here's another kicker that people don't probably realize. Every one of the mayors of major cities have signed an international compact contract, which is a corporation. It's a corporate agreement between foreign entities. So, how does the mayor of Denver, for example, I think his name was Hickenlooper at the time, how does he go and sign an international compact contract creating the state of Colorado as an international community under its Vatican, the city of Denver, where all probate cases must be heard through the city of Denver? And, where I come from, that's considered an international treaty when it involves foreign nations. And then when he became governor, he flew to Paris and signed the Paris Accord. Well, last I checked, that's a foreign treaty with a foreign nation. Now, maybe somebody can point out where a governor has the right to sign a foreign treaty and bring our country into a foreign, treaty with a foreign nation or number of nations when he's a governor. His jurisdiction ends at the state line and goes nowhere beyond the borders of this country. But yet they all signed it. And how that isn't treason, sedition, and insurrection? Maybe somebody can explain that to me, because I'm just an ignorant country lawyer. I wouldn't know that. But, why aren't these people, instead of being made senator, why aren't they being prosecuted for what they're, the crimes they committed, which is insurrection, treason, and sedition, by flying to a foreign country and signing a treaty as a state governor for our country? Pretty sure that's not in any way legal, but here we are. But going back to the National Archives, I digress. Once we found those constitutions and we demanded certified copies of them, I also found documents like from the National Archives. I proved that the Blackfeet were, messed up. The blood Blackfeet. What happened was, I found in the congressional record, they had an agreement to send several hundred tons of food to keep these thousands of people alive during what was one of the coldest winters in history for a long time. And they had 2,000 head of cattle, and they're supposed to get 200 tons of food. And the head of the Indian Agency at the time, he was a personal friend of President Grant's. He found the guy who had the contract to haul the freight, and he told him, bought a bottle of whiskey and said, let's go for a walk, according to the freight guy. And he said, listen, you haul 10% to the Indians. Instead of 2,000 head, you give them 200 head. Instead of 200,000 tons, you give them 20,000 tons. Or I think it was less than that. It's been a long time. But basically, he made a deal with them, and he says, and I'll sell it, and we'll split it, and we'll both be rich men. Well, of course, he decided he wasn't going to split it. So he sold it and kept it. And a lot of Blackfeet starved to death that year. But the only reason it became congressional record is because the guy got pissed off that he was, he was robbed. The guy told him he was split, he'd give him half, and he didn't give him anything, so he went and testified before Congress. And that's how I got that record on what was done to the Blackfeet. So then I pulled up the records of the Indian agent in Browning and on the Blackfoot Reservation, and he said, I have over 2,000 Piegan Blackfeet here, and over 2,200 to 2,400 Blackfeet on their way through 7 feet of snow in 50 below weather. And he said, all I have is 400-pound sacks of flour and 400-pound sacks of corn and a few sickly cattle. And he goes, and all I have is these blankets I suspect of maybe being contaminated with smallpox. And all I can do is give him the blankets and send him out to look for food, which he did. And then later on, the commander of the post sent the troops out after him for leaving the reservation, and many of them were killed. So that's another thing I happened to find at the same time. But all these constitutions that I dug up make it pretty clear that the people that are running these states are running what's called a de facto de jure government. So it means a not legal government that is the government of the day. So until people decide that, hey, we want our original constitutions back, and don't, you can't demand, oh, I want the Constitution for the state of Washington from 1878. You got to go in and say, I want miscellaneous document number 55 from the National Archives submitted by Kurt Riggin in 2001 with the state archives. That happens to be the original 1878 Walla Walla Constitution. If they can't provide it, you can then sue them under FOIA and get up to $100 a day per page. And under cases like Kalina versus Fletcher, if they find it egregious enough, you can get up to $300 a day per page for every page they withhold it from you. And you can look up guys like Arthur West versus Washington. He's collected quite a few shekels from the state of Washington for not answering his FOIA requests, including cases like Lakewood, Washington State Department of Fish and Game, stuff like that. If we had more people like him, we'd have more honest governments, I guarantee you. But people like him and myself, we're endangered species, and that's the kind of way they like it. But that is part of my story on the hostile corporate takeover of America, which is the story I'm writing now.